Hello there, everybody, and big welcome to you all on whatever platform you're watching this on. We stream live every Wednesday at this time, just 10 minutes past 1. The idea being you can nip at 1 o'clock, your lunch is, nip, get your sandwiches or your fruit bowl, whatever it is, come back to your desk or wherever you are, and you'll be able to join in the Lunch and Learn experience. So we are broadcasting live right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, and our YouTube channel. And so hello, if you're watching live, great to have you with us. If you're watching the recording, again, the recording is on all three platforms. Hello to you, and thanks for watching on the recording. Now, I'm just double checking, because I remember last week I didn't turn my mic on for a couple of minutes. So yes, everything seems to be working, which is a success. Now then, today we have got some giveaways. Let's put the giveaway thingy up here. Here we go. So in the chat box, if you put hashtag swag, and at the end, depending on how many people we have, we'll run the piece of software that does all of that, and we'll get the books. And we've got 4 to give away this week, would you believe? Introduction to NLP, one of my favorite things to talk about, as you know. Introduction to Life Coaching, again, linked and very popular. The classic James Allen book, As a Man Thinketh. Everybody should have a copy of that. And the book that got me started in this industry in the first place, my book, Introduction to Personal Development, or The Little Book of Personal Development, I should say, is what it's actually called. So if you put your, in the thing, swag, hashtag swag, we'll run the software at the end, and hopefully somebody will win that. Now then, what are we talking about today? Today we're going to be talking about, well, developing philosophy of personal success, or personal philosophy of success, if you will. And really, this is one of the things I'm super passionate about when it comes to personal development, or indeed, if you're on an NLP training program, we talk about the presuppositions of NLP, because they're the things that help me change my life and literally turn it around, 360 degrees, screeching, handbrake turn, and go in a completely different direction. And even when I'm working with my clients, be it in an organization, talk about the beliefs of a team, or the culture of a team, or on a one-to-one basis, but what is it we really believe about ourselves, about the possibility of a better future, and our limitations or our opportunities. And so this underpinning personal philosophy is what we're going to be sort of focusing on today. And the good news is, by pure chance, we've got a fantastic guest with us today, Mr. Jack Taylor. I'll introduce him in a second. But chance chat on LinkedIn, would you believe? I made a comment on one of his posts, I think, or something like that. Very sort of innocuous. And we started talking, and I thought, wow, this guy's pretty special and inspiring. We should have him on as an interviewee. So a big welcome to Jack. I'll just bring him in now. There we go. And there he is, the lovely Jack Taylor. Hi, Jack. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Feel humbled by your impressive introduction. So thank you.
Well, no need to be humbled. You've already told me part of your story, and it's pretty impressive. And as I think I often say on these broadcasts, and certainly on the trainings that we run, all too often the focus is on people who are not successful or quote unquote broken, although we wouldn't normally say that, unresourceful state, rather than focus on the ones who've turned it around or really doing something interesting with their lives that also help other people. Because it's good to do something interesting and supportive, but if it's helping other people, that's even better. So Jack, over to you in a way. Just tell us a little bit about your personal journey.
So I guess my own personal journey, if I start at the end point where I am now and what I do, and then I can, I guess, go through how I got there. So what I do currently is I help busy and ambitious people who feel like they've lost their edge and they're not living a life that they feel they're meant for. They kind of know that they're meant for more. I help them through the journey and the process of self-mastery, which includes mastering their mind, which it comes down to ultimately how we think, feel, transforming our bodies, because our body is it's an extension of ourself, and it's often a reflection of our internal world, and then optimizing and elevating our life. So ensuring that our external world, after we've done the work on ourselves internally and in the physical realm, our external world and our life is aligned to our core values. So that's what I do currently, and I coach people through the process of achieving that and creating a life that empowers them every morning. They wake up, they feel aligned to it, they feel like they want to get out of bed, and there's a reason to be empowered ultimately every single morning. Now, how I guess went on my own personal journey to get to that point is like we obviously mentioned the other day, I've had a pretty whirlwind and emotionally turbulent journey myself. So I'll kind of do the 30,000-foot view version of it all. Like when I was around like middle of like adolescence, I'd say around like 14 is where I first, like retrospectively looking at it, started to experience really intense negative feelings. So I'd say I went through a quite an intense period of depression and anxiety during the ages of 14 to probably I'd say like 19, maybe even like back in the 19 to the age of 20, which is quite a long period of time.
Sure.
Now, as a result, because I didn't have the right resources available due to my age, not enough life experience to be able to understand how to deal with those feelings and those emotions. For myself, on my own personal journey, I didn't have at that point in time a strong role model, and in my own personal case and journey, a strong male role model to help me guide through that difficult journey and I guess show me the ropes as to how to, like self-mastery, what I obviously teach people now, how to manage our emotions, how to learn to observe our thoughts and understand that we are not our thoughts, and therefore start to gain some form of control over my outcomes. But due to not having that, I went through a really tough time where I felt out of control. That's pretty much the dominant thought that I had, is that there was a lack of control. I was very angry all the time. I went through a really strong period of about a year where I was like suicidal, had suicidal thoughts, things like that.
Wow.
And then kind of came out the other side of it after, I guess, having no choice but to like do the work, I like to call it. And then started on my own journey to, for lack of a better word, I guess, like recovery.
Yeah.
Because I didn't mention this to you the other day, but it just came to my mind now, like during that period of time, tried to find lots of forms of like escapism. So I like drank from a young age. I took drugs from a young age. So it was quite erratic.
All the usual trappings, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. As a result, so I've kind of recognized all of those things as a result of going through that. And weirdly enough, I say that even though that was like the darkest years of my life, and it's pretty horrible for like a 14, 15-year-old to not want to be alive, I've always said that I'm so pleased that I've been able to go through that. And I've learned so much, as you say, that there's never a failure or any feedback. And I've learned so much through that process. Unfortunately, I'm now in a position to be able to help and guide many other people through that. But yeah, in and amongst all that, I've also suffered with, I had a month where I had panic attacks every day. As I started getting into health, fitness and whatnot, that was one of my escapisms.
Yeah.
There's worse ones. I've had worse ones. So it was positive, but due to the fact that it wasn't escapism, there was an unhealthy balance. So I overshot it, became really addicted to going to the gym and my body obsessed. And as a result, created body dysmorphia. So I've kind of been to many different extremities. And I guess as a result of going through that, I've tried to find balance between it all. So yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. A couple of key words I'd like to pick out, and then we've got a few slides to share as well, just about how you might want to start thinking about developing your philosophies. You mentioned having the right resources, and all too often people don't have access to the resources or don't have a mentor or a coach or somebody who can go, hold on a second, what's really important here? What kind of thing do you need? How can I even help you? Which might be even useful. And another word you used was alignment. Now, in NLP, of course, we talk about alignment a lot using logical levels, creating alignment. So everything, every single level, from the environment right up to identity, is in alignment and supports going forward, supports our goals or our outcomes going forward. So that's also very, very interesting to me. And one of the things you did say, and I think I mentioned that it stuck with me, is this: nobody's going to come and save you. You've got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that this morning. And the hero's journey, most people are familiar with the work of that. But my colleague published our book, The Hero's Journey, and we use this as a reference in one of the modules in our Master Practitioner. You have to be the hero of your own story, and you've got to take control of it, drive the bus forward, because nobody else is going to be able to do that for you.
100%.
Which, of course, is the interesting thing. Right. I'm going to pause you there, and I think we'll do some of the slide sharing, and then we'll come back and have a chat as we go along, I think. So let me just add these few slides to the, there we go. So what do we mean when we say developing a personal philosophy of success? Because that can, I guess, maybe, what are they talking about philosophy? And we're all about beliefs. We're talking about the beliefs that we have, the day-to-day beliefs. And of course, most people don't, on a regular basis, stop and do an audit. What is it, do I really believe about this or believe about that? Because we inherit a lot of our beliefs, our culture, and we'll look at in a second how some of that might happen. But the kind of things we're talking about today, about philosophy, what I really believe about myself, is beliefs about who we are, what's possible for us, and some kind of ideas about what's possible for a better tomorrow. Because all too often people think tomorrow's going to be worse than today, which that's not true. It can be better, but you have to take control, as we've already sort of mentioned. And so the thing we bang on about in our trainings, in all beliefs, there is a lie. If somebody comes telling you their absolute truth and they've got the answers to everything, beware of that, because that sounds like on the road to some kind of dictatorship. So that in all beliefs, there's some form of a lie, because as humans, we distort, delete, and change all sorts of things in our language. And so that leads us on to this notion of unhelpful beliefs that we all pick up, and none of us are immune to this, or what we say in NLP and often in coaching as well, this notion of a limiting belief, a belief that's stopping us. I can't do this, it's too difficult, if only I could. They're the kind of things that we would hear in our language. So the kind of thing we say in personal development, especially around NLP and this notion of presuppositions, is this philosophical set of our sail. That's determined where we've been and where we want to go. And if we want to sort of, change that, we've got to change tack. We've got to change tack with the sails. And growing up by the seaside, as I did, I'm familiar with, sailing boats and how you change tack and still can zigzag across the ocean. Now, of course, a lot of people then blame everything else. They blame the world out there. They blame the teachers. They blame the weather. I've even had one person say, it's God's fault that I'm like this. Blame, 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 rather than taking responsibility. And as Jack said, nobody's going to come and save you. Superman's not going to fly through the window and usher you off to the land of milk and honey. You've got to do it yourself. So a starting point in personal development, not necessarily NLP, is this thing from Henry Ford. And everybody's familiar with it. And it's almost like a cliche thing that nobody takes seriously. But actually, it's fundamentally true and important. If you think you can, probably right. If you think you can't, you're probably right. And it is this notion of, do I believe I can do this? I'm going to give it a good go. If I believe I can't do it, I'm not even going to bother. So then we might ask the question, well, okay, Tony, this is very interesting. Where are these beliefs coming from? I'm not sort of conscious of these beliefs. And we would say in NLP, we would do a belief audit. Okay, well, and there's or a values audit as well. And we would have a whole process to be able to do that, either for ourselves or maybe for our clients that we would work with. But of course, they start being installed, from the day you're born. Now, one of the things is this premature cognitive commitment. And anybody watching this now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on this today because we won't have time. And if you want more interested, then you can get in touch and we can do some training or whatever, or join one of our training programs. But the premature bit is because it happens at an early age. Cognitive, because that's how we cognize or see the world. We're kind of fixed, if you will, dropped in the die and out we come. And then this commitment, we're committed to this particular version of reality without us ever deciding about it. And the good example is, if I'd been born in, I don't know, Iran or Iraq or somewhere like that, my worldview would be Islamic. Because I was born here in the UK, my worldview is, sort of nominal Christian view and democratic process, because that's how I've been raised. I remember a few years ago, my friend was learning Japanese because here in Swindon, we had the Honda plant. And he said, I'm going to learn Japanese. I saw him a few weeks or a month or so afterwards. How's it going? He goes, oh, it's impossible. It's impossible to learn Japanese. And I did mention to him, well, not for Japanese children, because it's that premature cognitive commitment. They're in the soup, soaking it all up. And then, of course, we're reminded at the same time of Morris Massey's notion about imprinting, the imprinting period at the beginning, the cultural imprint that we get, and then we start modeling the behavior of others, especially in school, and the teachers, what they say to us, the language, you're successful or you're not successful. And we're all familiar with the tests that were done, telling kids they're brilliant, they're going to be successful. Even if they were the mediocre kids, they went on to be successful. The really clever ones, nah, you're rubbish. They turned out not to be very great because they were being basically programmed. And then socialization, where we begin to pick up the habits of other people, the cultural things that we think, because we want to fit in, we want to be part of the team, we want to be part of the club. Whether it's good or not, we still want to do that. So limiting beliefs, we'd hear it in our language. I can't do it. I wish I could do it. If only I was able to. That's the kind of thing that you'll hear in the language when you're coaching individuals. And then our job, and I will talk about what the job of a coach is. In fact, that's often one of the questions that comes through. What's the job of a coach? Well, it's to take the client from a state of hopelessness to a state of optimism. You can do this. Of course you can. I've seen how wonderful you are. From the notion of helplessness to a state of confidence. I'm confident that I can go out and do whatever it is I want to do. And then taking worthlessness, which you would be amazed how much this comes up, even in the spectrum of, from life coaching right up to senior executives in large organizations, where they sort of get, all sorts of interesting syndromes about being fakers and getting away with it and all of these kind of things. This self-esteem. Am I worthy of the success? Have they made a mistake promoting me to this position? I don't know how this has happened. And all of that kind of stuff. So we really, really have to work with our clients to move them from that side of the grid to that side. Now, here's a sort of little mental exercise, I guess, and this is something similar that we might do on one of our trainings. Think about a limiting belief that you might have now. So if you're watching live, do that now. If you're watching on the recording, do that now. You went to do something, you thought, Christ, I'm not sure I can do that, or it's going to be a bit difficult or a challenge. Or am I worthy? Or somebody once said to me, people like me never do things like that, Tony. Well, says who? But just think about what that might be. Think of a limiting belief. And then, I would encourage you, rather than living out of your history, this is quoting Stephen Covey, which, as everybody knows me, I'm very fond of quoting, live out of, not of our history, but our imagination. What could you do? What might that be like? What's really stopping you? Let's take that first step and see what happens and learn from that. So this notion of turning it on its head rather than going, it's never happened to me before, it can never happen to me in the future, maybe isn't the truth. So going to where we are talking about the presuppositions of NLP, let me just bring our guest back. So looking at that sort of brief overview about beliefs and philosophy and kind of values thing there as well, I'm guessing that's kind of resonates with your sort of experience.
Absolutely, 100%. And funny you say that, actually. Obviously, prior to hopping on here today, I just had a client call, of which was majoritively about beliefs. And I was breaking down her belief that she's not good enough, which is ultimately a very common belief that is held by most people. And we started to reflect on where that came from my life and understanding that it came from many different things, but a school experience and something to do with her father when she was younger. But made clear today that for as long as she held on to that belief was true, she would then hold on to the identity of that to be true too. And was breaking down the notion with her, which was a really powerful and moving call, that things in life don't have any meaning. We assign meaning to them. And the way I gave it the example of this was, I've got a new standing desk and it came yesterday, and I think it's the best thing since sliced bread. So I'm extremely passionate about my new standing desk. Therefore, I've assigned the meaning to it that it's really awesome, really important. But to yourself, you might feel indifferent. You might think that they're bad and have a negative feeling towards them. So I've assigned the positive feeling towards this standing desk, and you've assigned the negative. Who's right? Neither one of us, because there is no definitive meaning behind this desk. We've just chosen to assign something to it. So therefore, let's say your view was negative around it, and then you spent your entire life avoiding standing desks. If that was an issue, we'd then want to change your belief around the standing desk so that it will change your meaning around the standing desk that you've assigned to it, so you can change ultimately how you can then live out the rest of your life. So yeah, it's quite fitting for some of the conversations I've had even today. Yeah.
And the desk thing is good because, what we say in NLP, the map's not the territory. And my experience tells me that standing desks sound like hard work, but I'm listening to you and I'm learning now, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I could give that a go. Who knows?
Sure.
Certainly when I'm doing the trainings, I'm stood up because we bring in the platform. Things are up here. I'm sat down today because we're just doing this more casually. All right, let's just go back to the slide. So we're going to look now at a couple of presuppositions. I think I've picked up 5 that I think are useful. And the idea here is, remember, you think about that limiting belief. And my encouragement to you is to think, okay, I've got this limiting belief, or I did have it, or, might have happened before. Imagine that you believe this to be true, 100%, as we might say, it's gospel. There's no failure, only feedback. So no matter how bad things, screw up, quote unquote, crashed, you spilt the milk, you dropped the glass, you've, whatever it is, not got the report in on time, didn't make the sales figures exactly as you planned, whatever the thing is in life, and stuff happens. It's not failure, it's feedback. Now, of course, growing up, we get told we're failures a lot, or it's implied in our culture and in our language. But if we take the frame, it's only feedback and we can learn from it, that's actually very liberating. Now, I don't mind sharing with people, and I think I've said this many, many times before, one of the, a couple of these things together changed my life completely, and this is the first one. And I clearly remember taking that in on a training, thinking, oh, yeah, okay. But then later on, kind of like a thought virus, it's percolated away, and I thought, hang on a minute, how many times in life have I said, oh, you absolute other colorful language, as opposed to, okay, well, that didn't work out, what can we learn from that? And it really, you have to sort of step back and think, I'm going to believe this. From here on in, this is what I believe. There are no failures, it's just feedback. And of course, it's transformational. The classic example, of course, is Edison and his light bulb. If he'd given up, we wouldn't have electric lights. Maybe we still have oil lamps or something. I don't know. But, he didn't give up. He just had feedback and learned and learned and learned. And, amount of stuff he did to get to where he did, we're all very, very, very grateful. No feedback, no failure, only feedback. And then this is attributed to Gregory Bateson. I don't really know if this is true or not, but we'll say for now that it is. The meaning of your communication is the response you get. I struggled with this to begin with when I first did my very first NLP training, I don't know, 100 years ago. The meaning of your communication is the response you get. I'm responsible for the meaning that comes back to me. Well, hang on a second, how can that be right? Because I need to be flexible. I need to be able to flex my approach in how I communicate. If I can only communicate in one way or one modality, or just like a robot at people, guess I'm not going to get a greater response. So I need to be flexible in how I deliver my presentation or my one-to-ones or whatever that is. More importantly, of course, is my internal dialogue. And we just talked about failure and feedback. What's that internal dialogue that we have? Jack's just mentioned he had a client there, and they were sort of beating themselves up about something, about a belief system. And that's often what happens. We're afraid of failure, we're afraid of having a go because the internal thing says you're not worthy, you're not good enough, and all of that kind of stuff, which is linked to this notion of growth mindset or fixed mindset. And we're all familiar with this, but I think all too often, because we're so familiar with it, we don't take it seriously enough. This is very, very important. If you want to be successful in life, be it in your personal life and or your professional life, I suggest you're successful in both. It's having this growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. And you see the top of the thing there in a growth mindset, failure is an opportunity to grow. Failure is the greatest teacher. I think Steve Jobs, said regularly from the platform, if you want to be successful, fail often and fail fast, because that's the best teacher that's out there. Now, this one's attributed to Mark Twain. Again, I have no idea if this is true, but we'll say and imagine that it is for now. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always had. Now, again, this sounds kind of like a bit twee or a bit cliche, but actually, let's think about it for a second. If I really want to change the direction of my life, I want to be the Superman in my hero's journey, I want to go in a different direction, I've got to do stuff differently. And that includes my thinking. If I don't change my thinking and my beliefs, all of that stuff, if I don't change any of that, nothing's really going to change very much at all. It's not what happens that makes the difference, it's what you do with it. Guess what? It rains on everybody, the righteous and the evil. We choose how to react to it. We choose how to react, and it is a choice. It's simply a choice. Disaster's happened, or okay, things haven't worked out. What can we do about it? What have we learned from that? How can we do that differently going forward? This is an important one, and again, I'm imagining now that you're thinking these things are true for you. I'm taking on these beliefs, and we have a big exercise that we do on our training about how you would do that. But for now, just imagine you believe that. If I put my energy into something, where attention goes, energy flows. If I'm focused just on my problems, on my problem state, guess what I'm going to get more of? problems because I'm just focusing on that. And the reticular activating system in our brain says, this is important. They want more of this. We don't want more problems. We want more solutions. So we focus on solutions instead. And I think this is probably the final one here. If you want to understand ACT, and this is one of the most fundamental things when you're learning something new about yourself, do it. Have a go. Try. If it doesn't work out 100%, you pick yourself up, get back on the horse, and you have another go. That's how you learn to ride the horse or the bicycle. I clearly remember the first time I got on a bicycle, fell straight over. Got back up, fell over again, got back up, a little bit wobbly. And now, it's not a problem. So if you want to understand ACT, if you're learning NLP, coaching, leadership models, going to the gym, learning how to, get fit or whatever, have a go. To begin with, it hurts and all those kind of things. That's all right. You just keep on going and onwards and upwards. So sort of wrap this bit up, and then we'll come back to Jack for another bit of a chat. Our attitude to life, challenges, the opportunities, and what we get out of it really is about our beliefs, or philosophical underpinning belief systems and values that guide us. They kind of like the neck, they turn our head and focus on what's going on. And then the filters come in. Is this good or is this bad? Oh dear, it's me in it. Well, yeah, so you can change it. And remember, and this is the thing we bang on about, all beliefs are a choice. They're not stapled to your head. You can just change them, and changing beliefs is less complicated than you would think. And certainly in NLP, and I think other coaching methodologies, there are lots of models and interventions that you can use to change. And then I think this definitely is the last slide here, because I like quoting these people. Your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. And attitude really, really is the thing that makes the difference. If you've got a bad attitude, people don't like you, basically, and you're not going to be successful in life anyway. Least of all, happy with yourself. People go around angry, little Mr. Angry all the time. What is that angry? You're angry with yourself. You're being angry at the world because it's not going to change it. You're going to have to change yourself. So look into that mirror and go, okay, well, what would I change about myself? And that's why, personal development, journaling, all of those different kind of things are so important. So, Jack, let's go back to your story. Actually, you might have a few comments on those last few slides.
Well, I think one of the ones that I always like to quote is the Henry Ford one, being that whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. And it's fundamentally true. Any person that I've ever encountered, I've worked with probably close to 150 people, clients now. If they have a strong set of beliefs, that ultimately, let's say that they can't get into great shape, then they will do everything unknowingly in their power. Their subconscious mind will do so to reinforce that belief is true. So the aim of the game really is to provide enough evidence to yourself that that belief is not true through, like you say, many of the processes and methods that are out there to change that identity and to change that belief. And we are just an accumulation of our beliefs and stories that we tell ourselves. So if you're able to ultimately change those beliefs and stories, as cliche as it sounds, you are able to change your life. You're able to change how you think, feel, and behave on a daily basis, which ultimately determines your life outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about setting a goal, if you believe you're going to do it, you will. If you don't, you won't. That's due to the way. And I think last week's broadcast we talked about how setting a well-formed outcome changes the architecture of your brain, rewires things, so you focus on it. But you must believe that it's possible. And we talked about last time the recipe for success in goal setting, and one of them is I believe it's possible. If you don't believe, well, wasting your time, absolute waste of time, because it's never going to happen. It's a bit like that New Year's resolution thing. Oh yeah, I'm going to change my life and go to the gym, and nothing ever happens because they don't really believe it. And even if they do kind of believe that it might be good to do that, then there's no strategy. How are you going to do that? The how part is super important, and the underpinning reasons why has to be motivating, which is good. Sure. So a couple of other questions, if I can, Jack, and I've said to you before, only share what you feel is appropriate because this is live. But a couple of the things you said to me I thought were really, really interesting, and I think they were prompted by, I sort of thought back what questions that I asked you. There was a moment of change for you where you thought, right, it's me in it. I've got to do this.
Yeah, I think there's been, it's obviously been a really long journey. And something I say to my clients as well, is that it's a never-ending journey. Once you open Pandora's box, you can't close it again, which is, I want that to be a liberating thought for anybody who does hear that, and an empowering thought that you're on a continuous journey of improvement, ultimately. So I've had, because it's been long, I've had many a moment of realization. Now, I think one of the biggest moments of realization was when, I guess it would have been communicating how I felt to those around me who also weren't well equipped or prepared for dealing with the intensity and magnitude of what I was feeling, and then understanding that my peers, let's call it, so it was like my parents, my friends, and also unfortunately the NHS. No one I spoke to was well equipped to be able to give me adequate support or help in creating change. So if that's what you're referring to, and I believe it is, it was probably that moment where I had that epiphany and realization that no one's coming to save me, and no one does. No one will come and save you. You have to save yourself. And that also ties into the belief in knowing that unless I make the strong decision to take action, nothing will change. It will, things either get better or they get worse. Nothing stays the same. It's not the way the world works. Things grow, they die. You got on, off. It's full of polarities. So it's the same with obviously someone's situation. It will either get better or worse. And I think that day I made a decision that I don't want it to continue to get worse. So I made a commitment to myself. I'll do everything in my power to try and take hold of the wheel and make it better. And I think one of the biggest lessons also, just to caveat on that, that I've learned, is that it has to be small incremental changes. If you try and completely change your life overnight, you'll become extremely overwhelmed, and you won't do it, and you'll revert back to your old habits that you never got rid of, which will then reinforce the story of you being a failure and that you can't do it, and this belief, and then it's a self-fulfilling cycle. So I can't stress enough how important small incremental goals are. So if it's, let's say you're at the point where you're like bedridden, you can't get out of bed, it's not want to go out and I'll live a luxurious life every day. First goal you should put in place is to get out of bed. And it's those small mental challenges that you put in place that compound.
Absolutely. And that's what we say in goal setting in NLP or in coaching, because you got the big vision. I want to have the mansion on the hill, but as you say, getting out of bed first might be a good start. So what's the first step? So your big vision, overall, big, hairy, audacious goal, if you will. Okay, let's break that into smaller chunks. Talk about chunking. So what's the first thing you would need to do? So that's the first goal, and then. Because otherwise, as you say, it's a bit...
You're uninspired. And it's something I bash over their heads with my clients until it's imprinted into their brain, is we're always striving for progress, not perfection, because perfection is the enemy of progress and it paralyzes you in doing anything. So it's like being rid of the idea that you need to be perfect or chasing perfection, and just asking yourself, like, am I 1% better today than I was yesterday? And if the answer is yes, then it's a great day.
Yeah, as I think I said recently to somebody, show me perfection and I'll tell you that's Hollywood. It ain't real. None of us are perfect. And then, if I may, just one other sort of question, and then I've just got to wrap you up a few things to do. By the way, anybody listening live, again, for the books, in the chat box or comments, hashtag swag, and we'll run that at the end. What would you share with anybody watching either live or the recording later, one key learning that you've had on your journey that you'd like to share with anybody else?
Cool. That's the $1 million question, because there's been, like I've alluded to, there's been so many. I would say that anything is possible, and that sounds so cliche and cringy, but it is ultimately. And again, just relays back to that point, just to hit it home, about it all comes down to your level of belief in what you're trying to achieve, and you need to want to do it. So your level of why is really the thing that needs to underpin everything. So if I said to you that I gave you a target this week of going get up at 5 a.m, but you didn't see the value in doing it, you didn't really want to do it, or you didn't believe you could do it, your alarm will then go off at 5 a.m, and that little voice in the back of your head is going to be like, Tony, why are we doing this? And your response is going to be, because Jack told me to. And that's not good enough. You won't get up. So you need to have like this deep down
Jack's
burning.
not here. I'm staying in bed.
Exactly that. And unless you have this really deep down burning desire and this strong sense of why to do any form of habit or behavior or thought that you're trying to instill, it won't happen, because it, again, always reinforces that point of you don't feel like you can, or you don't feel like it's valuable, so therefore you won't.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And my friend Ross, colleague Ross, he says your why must be stronger than your try. He comes up with all these really kind of cool things, but I really like that. Your why must be stronger than your try. Actually, getting up at 5 o'clock, I'm smiling to myself because I'm one of those people who do get up at 5 o'clock. I read Hal What's His Name's book a few years back, and I thought getting up at 5 o'clock will be good for me. What are you talking about? So I tested it. There's the thing about testing things. Does this work for me? And the first week was a bit, especially when it's cold in the wintertime and it's dark and all. It's easier when it's sunny. But it turned my life around because I'm way more productive, and I clear all those emails out first thing, and I do a bit of exercise and a bit of a meditation and a bit of, personal development. All the recipe that's in Hal's book, which I recommend to anybody. That's just a great book. I recommend that to anybody. Great. Okay. We mentioned about the hero's journey. Maybe in a future broadcast we'll talk about that, and we'll give that book away. It's for sale. You can find it on Amazon, Kindle or hard copy, or indeed on our website as well. Jack, that's been amazing. I really, really appreciate you joining us today. It's been fantastic. Now, if people want to get hold of you, obviously you're on LinkedIn, but just as Jack Taylor, LinkedIn, Jack Taylor.
That's it. Yeah. So just as Jack Taylor on LinkedIn. On Instagram, it's JT Coaching 1, and similar on Facebook. It's either Jack Taylor or JT Coaching as the Facebook page.
Brilliant. We'll add all those links to the recording so people can catch those and they can get in touch with you. Right. I suppose we had better do the books. There's only 2 in there, so somebody's going to win these. So let's just, make sure I share the page. Share screen. Get this right. Chrome tab. Giveaway. Yes. So hopefully everybody can see that. And I'll now run the draw. There's only 2. So one of these lovely people are going to win something. Let's see what happens. It's Lisa. Lisa has won some books. Okay, Lisa. Let me just come out of there. Stop sharing. Okay, so hopefully everybody saw that. Did everybody see that? Did you see that, Jack?
I did, yes.
Yeah, it worked. My God, it's a miracle. I'm actually getting better at this. Brilliant. Okay, Lisa, we will be in touch and we will dispatch all 4 books to you in the fullness of time. I've got to go to the post office later on because there's some training manuals again to send out, which is great. Next week, I'm away. I'm taking my father-in-law to Rome for a few days, just for a mini break. There will be a broadcast, but it'll be a recording. But we'll still be able to pick up the comments and we'll respond in due course when I get back. I'm only away for a few days, but I just thought a bit of a break. Father-in-law's had a tough time, lockdown, all that. His wife passed away. I won't even bore you with all the details, but it's pretty tedious. So we thought, let's do something nice for him. So we're going to go and spend a few days in Rome. So that'll be nice. But there will be a broadcast, but it'll be recorded. You can still add comments, and we will be able to pick them up when I get back. Okie dokie. Guys, it's been brilliant. Thanks again for watching, either on the recording or live. And I will catch up with you very, 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 very soon. Oh, almost forgot. If you are interested, and only because today is pretty much the last day, if you would like to register for our PRAC program and coaching certification, covering all of the things we've been looking at over the last few weeks, today really is the last day that you could register because I have to get all the manuals and things out to you, possibly squeeze you in tomorrow. We've got maybe 2 spots left now. So if you want to do that, get in touch. And just because you watch this broadcast, there's a 15% discount. So make sure you mention that on the phone. Okay, I think that's it. It's been fantastic. Guys, see you very, very soon. Till then, ciao.